Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Kofax webinar. My name is Brock Hathan with Printix, a Kofax company. I'm very excited to be here. I'm really excited to show you Printix today. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Our agenda is really straightforward. I'm going to first talk about what Printix is and who we are. Then we're going to talk briefly about why customers choose Printix. And then my favorite part, we're going to spend most of our time today doing a product demo. I'm going to jump right into Printix itself and show you what we do and how we do it. And of course, at the end, we'll have time for questions. But at any time, if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to send it through the chat. My sales engineer, Tyler, is on as well to answer questions for you. So first things first, what is Printix? So Printix actually started over 10 years ago in Denmark. The founders of Printix saw that there were print management solutions and print servers, of course, but most of the alternatives to print servers were on-prem at the time, and they were really complicated to set up and use. So the founders of Printix wanted to create something that was much more simple and straightforward and could manage any make and model of printer. So our goal at Printix is to be able to allow users to print anytime from any device to any printer, and also remove those on-prem costs of a print server, minimize administration time, and improve users' productivity. And we wanted to create something that was scalable. So with Printix, you can manage anything from 5 users all the way up to 500,000 plus users. And over a year and a half ago, we were purchased by Kofax. It's been an awesome transition. We are now able to see Printix's true potential through the resources and people behind us now at Kofax. Have a couple of case studies that I want to go through, and you're welcome to check these out at our website at any time. The first, several years ago, we had a customer who had a problem that many of you probably went through. The 2008 servers were being deprecated, and he had a choice to make. He was either going to upgrade servers to just new print servers and have an additional cost, but all the same features, basically, or he could make a change and find something cloud-based to help with his cloud transition as well. And he found Printix, and of course, we helped him do exactly that. Got rid of his on-prem print servers entirely. Now he's managing all of his printers in the cloud. And I bring this up, of course, because Windows 2012 is reaching end of life this year, October 10th, actually. So if you haven't heard of that, or if you need a solution for that, Printix is here for you. The other was a very large customer. The CTO of the organization had a task given to them to cut down on help desk tickets, because they were seeing tens of thousands of help desk tickets coming in every year, and over 30% of them were print related. Now, that doesn't mean that the printers themselves were having problems. In fact, most of the issues were just users weren't quite sure how to get a printer onto their computer, or they wanted to print from their phone or something, they weren't able to. But thousands of tickets a year just related to printing. And so he started his search online and found Printix, and we have cut those help desk tickets, or the print-related help desk tickets, down to virtually nothing. And of course, he's never going back to those on-prem print servers again. All right, well, let's jump right into my favorite part, the actual product demo, the Printix demo. And again, as I'm going through this demo, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to send them through in the chat, and Tyler will be there to help answer those. But my demos do not take very long, thankfully, because Printix is pretty simple, right? Just like I said at the beginning, we wanted to create something simple, and that's exactly what we've done. Printix itself is just a cloud-based printer management solution that allows you to manage network and USB printers centrally from the cloud, without the need of any servers or print servers of any kind on site at all. And the big misconception about Printix is that we're just a cloud-hosted print server, right? If we're managing printers in the cloud, we must also be spooling all print jobs in the cloud. and sending all print jobs through the cloud. But that is not the case at all. That would be a nightmare for security and bandwidth and a whole lot of other reasons. So what we've done instead is we create or we manage all of the printers here in our administrator console, which is what you see on my screen now, hosted entirely by us on Azure, so you don't have to worry about hosting it all. But we install a small client agent on each computer, compatible with Windows and Mac, can be pushed out silently, of course, using just about any tool. And that client, once it gets installed on a computer, it allows us to install and manage the printers on those computers as regular direct IP printers. So when somebody goes to print with Printix, they don't have to print in any special way. You don't have to retrain end users on how to print. They just print as usual. Their jobs are spooled locally on their workstation and then sent directly to the printer that they're printing to, which means, unlike a print server, there's no single point of failure for printing and Printix. Even if our admin console were to crash, even if the internet were to go offline, as long as you still have network access to the printers you're printing to, you'll be able to print. Now, we do also offer remote printing or via the cloud. Our remote printing would allow users to print from home back to the office printers at any time if you allow them to. So they are still printing as usual. Their printers show up just like they would normally. They print to it, but the Printix client will see that they are not on the same network as the office printers. And it will say, okay, is remote printing enabled? If it is, then it will encrypt those jobs, package them up, and send them through our Azure servers. And then it's brought down by any computer that has the client installed and then sent directly to the printer from there. So, of course, the printers, even for our remote printing, never have to speak to the internet. Right? They do not have to have that internet connection in order to do remote printing, which is great. Now, this remote printing is the only time when printing is dependent on the internet. Right? Now, setup for Printix is pretty straightforward. I've got my organization here, Brock & Sons. And to get it set up, all I've done is come in here to the admin console and created all my different locations, as you can see here on the left. And I'm currently in the St. George, Utah location. That's where I am physically. And I've got 3 printers that I'm managing here. Well, to get these printers into Printix, we have an automated tool that makes it really easy for you to do that. All you have to do, if you're running a print server currently, just install the client on the print server temporarily, and that will trigger an automated discovery process that will find all of the existing printers, their make and model, IP address, even their drivers that are being used on the print server, and it will copy and paste all of them right here into Printix. So you literally just install that client on the print server for a couple of minutes, and then you'll see all of your printers start popping up here in Printix. Once that's done, you can remove the client from the print server and move forward with Printix. If you do not have a print server currently, that's okay. You can just install the client on the computers as usual, and the client will use ping and SNMP to find the printers on the network and also bring them in automatically to Printix. So once we have our printers here in the admin console, we can actually start managing them. But the cool thing about Printix is that we are unintrusive, meaning if you want to run a trial of Printix, you can do so really easily without the worry of it affecting everybody all at once, right? So even if you add all of your printers here to the admin console, we're not going to affect printing for anybody until they have the client installed on their computer, which is great. So you can start a trial, you can bring in all of your printers, but you only install the client on maybe a handful of computers, and those handful of users will be the only ones affected by Printix. Once it's passed your tests and you feel like you're comfortable with it and it's going to work for you, then you push out the client to everybody, and Printix will immediately take over, and people will start printing through Printix at that point. When you push out that client as well, the client will find existing queues on computers and convert them into Printix queues if they finds those printers here in the admin console, which is really great. So it's less cleanup as well, so you don't have to go through every single computer and start removing printers. Now I've got these 3 printers here in the Utah, St. George, Utah location. I've got this Canon printer that you can see here, and Printix allows me to check its status at any time, which is really cool. We keep up on that SNMP information, so I could see if it had low toner or it had any errors that it were putting off here. And with our reporting that I'll show you later on, you can create alerts that will tell you immediately if any of these triggers are hit. I can also see that this printer has 5 queues associated to it. Now, Printix differentiates between printers, physical printers, and their queues. Queues can be modified and shared out to users to show up just like regular printers, but when they go to print to them, you can change their settings, their default settings. So like here, I've got one queue that is defaulted to printing color, and I share that out to certain users. This other one is black and white, shared out to different users or maybe all users. And also have one here to use a PostScript driver, but you could set up any settings that you'd like here. So you could have it pull from a different tray or whatever it might be. But if I take this color queue here, you'll notice that I already have this printer installed on my computer, and it shows up just as a regular printer. Right? But if I want to make changes to this printer on workstations, I can do that here in the admin console really easily. If I want to change its name at any time, like if I want to add Kofax to the end of this name here and save it, that is a global and automatic change. Anybody who has the client and that printer installed will be updated with that new name silently and automatically. So of course, I don't have to go around to each computer and make this change. And the end users don't have to have admin rights on their workstation for that update to take place because the client is running as a system service for them. Now that change goes for all the changes that we make here in the admin console. It's silent and automatic. Let's say someone doesn't have this printer yet and they need it, and I need to get it to them. I don't want to go to their computer and install it for them manually, of course, that's a headache. I can do it right from here in Printix, and I don't have to deal with GPOs or scripts anymore. There's several different ways that I can push out printers or deploy printers through Printix. The first is by location. If I check this box right here, add print queue automatically, that means that anybody who falls within the same network as this particular printer, which I mentioned before was in the Utah location, and we also designate those through networks that we discovered. But anyone in the Utah location is going to have this Utah printer installed for them. So I will always have it as long as I'm here at this office. If I pick up my laptop, though, and go to the Kofax, California, Irvine, California office, then the Irvine printers will be installed for me, and the Utah printers will be removed for me if I check this box here as well. So no matter where I go in my organization, I will always have the appropriate printers installed for me. And as a user, I don't have to do anything at all. I just pick up my laptop, go to a new location, and I'll have those printers ready for me. You can also push out by groups. We can pull in Azure groups really easily. We do not pull in all groups all at once, just the groups that you would like to use. And so you could say everybody in the HR group is going to have HR printers installed and so on. Everybody in sales is going to have sales printers. And you can mix and match methods as well. So you could push out by groups and by location. So some printers will stick with users no matter where they go, and others will change. We also allow authentication through on-site AD, Google, Okta, and OneLogin. You can lastly push out printers by computers. This is independent of Azure or AD. We catalog each computer as it gets the client installed. So you could say anybody who logs into X computer is going to have X printers installed for them. We can manage drivers here in Printix as well. Like I mentioned before, though, when we do that automated discovery process, we're going to bring in all of the drivers that we see on the print server or the existing computers. So you do not have to make a change to all of your drivers when you're moving over to Printix. That, of course, again, would be a big headache. So we're going to keep using the drivers that you're using now if you would like to, but we're going to make it really easy for you to make changes or updates to these drivers in the future. And we do that through a cache, a driver cache of over 10,000 different drivers and their versions. That makes it really easy for you to see updated versions of a driver automatically and just hit change print driver. and that change will be made for everybody who has the client installed. I could also broaden my search here. Let's look for just all the canning drivers that are available in the cache, and it will give me a big long list of drivers for me to choose from here. I could select any one of them here at that point, hit change print driver, and again, I'm done. That's all I have to do. If we do not have a driver that you are looking for, though, you can always upload it to the cache and use it immediately. But these drivers that we've provided for you are OEM drivers. We have not created these drivers, so you're not going to miss out on any functionality of the printers. We also have full reporting, and our reporting is integrated with Power BI. So you'll be able to see who printed what, when, and where, and how much it costs the organization to print right here in these 15 pre-built reports that we've created for you. So you don't have to know how to use Power BI to see this information, right? But because it's integrated with Power BI, you'll be able to create your own reports, modify any of the reports that we've given you. And like I mentioned before, you can create automated alerts or integrations that will tell you if X user reaches X amount of print jobs for the month, or if a printer has an issue. Very easy to set up reporting, and you can also host this information yourself if you would like. Now, Printix also has some advanced features. Our advanced features include the remote printing that I mentioned before, secure printing, mobile printing, and scan management and workflow management. So the remote printing we've already covered that allows users to print through the internet. But what I didn't mention before is that if you're worried about security, you don't want those print jobs to go through our Azure servers, you can always set up your own Azure Blob or Google Cloud storage and tie it to Printix, so the jobs will be sent through your storage and not through ours. Secure printing is really simple. You can create virtual queues here in Printix. We've by default called them Printix Anywhere. But these virtual queues can be shared out to users just like a regular printer. So they see it on their computer like a regular printer, but when they go to print to it, their jobs are held for them instead of being released immediately. And then they can choose which printers to release those jobs to afterwards. Of course, they can release with a badge or their credentials on the printer itself if we install our control panel application on the printer, and we call that Printix Go. That would allow them to release their jobs at the printer itself on the printer. Compatible printers with Printix Go are what you see on my screen now. If you have a printer, though, that is not on this list, we may very well be coming out with it soon. We're adding to this list all the time. But also we have some alternatives to still allow you to use secure printing, but not have to install something on the printer itself. The first alternative would be QR code release. So here in Printix, I can select a printer and come to its printer ID sign. I could then print off this QR code and attach it to a printer, any make and model of printer. It could be a really old printer, it doesn't matter. And then a user would just get the Printix mobile app for Android or iOS, sign in using their regular credentials, and then they would just walk up, scan that code with the app, and their print jobs would come right out at that printer. Now, of course, just to clarify, the secure printing is just an option. By default, you're just going to be doing direct printing. Jobs will come out as usual. But if you want to enable this secure printing, you don't have to have badges or scanners for the printers or new printers that are compatible with these kinds of features. Printix allows you to do this on any make and model of printer with the QR code release. And we also have that mobile app that I mentioned for this QR code release, but that allows for mobile printing as well. So if you want to allow users to print from their mobile devices, they can do so with that mobile app. And they don't have to print through the app, they just get the app installed, and that allows them to print as usual from their mobile device, which is really great. You don't have to retrain them again on how to print from their phones. Lastly, with that Printix Go control panel application on the printers, we can manage scanning and report on scanning as well. And we can create workflows. So here in settings, we can create capture workflows that would allow you to say, okay, I want these scanned jobs to be sent to OneDrive or to a couple of email addresses, whatever this workflow might be, and make that available to users when they go to the printer itself to scan a job. They can select from workflows that you've created, and the jobs will just be sent off as needed. But this also works on your phone through the mobile app. So users could take a picture of it through the mobile app on their phone and then have these workflows available to them. So it could be sent to OneDrive or different email addresses that you've set up. All right. Well, that is a high-level overview of Printix. I know I have covered a lot of information in a very short amount of time, but thank you for bearing with me. We are going to jump into Q&A now for just a few moments. And so I will let that second screen come up. All right, so if you have any questions, please feel free to send them through in the chat. I have a list of questions here now that we're going to go through, but if you have any more, please feel free to send them in. The first was, is this a BYOD, bring your own device solution? Absolutely. I mean, with that mobile app, it makes it really easy to do that. And if they bring in their own laptop, you really just need the client installed on the computer to be able to give them all the features and everything that we've covered here today. Another cool question here is what happens with the printer discovery for local printers? I'm assuming you mean USB printers. The USB printer management is great in Printix in that we're not going to look for USB printers like we do for network printers, because we know that users may take their laptop home and you might not necessarily want to manage their home printers, right? So what we do for USB printers, if you want to manage them, we install an extension of the client called a redirector on the computer that has the USB printer plugged into it. And that then allows us to see those USB printers or the USB printer that's plugged into that computer. It'll show up here in Printix and you can manage it just like a regular printer. We had a question come in, can you get an NFR to be able to test? We do allow for 30-day trials, so everyone can test it out. If you are a partner, yes, we allow for NFRs for partners. Question here, how would you contrast Printix and Microsoft's Universal Print solution? So we actually have integrations with Universal Print, but in my humble opinion, I think it's a little redundant to have both Printix and Universal Print. And in my opinion, Printix has quite a bit more features than Universal Print at the moment. And we're still releasing, all the time. Universal Print is fairly new. And what I've heard from users, customers, and partners especially is that the pricing is really hard to understand or to know what you're going to print, because it's based on printing, right? Depending on what packages you have. But they give you some that are free per user per month, but then you have to pay in packs after that, and it can be a little confusing. Whereas Printix, you either by device or user, you know pretty well what you're going to pay. Question here, is there a way to clear the print queue if needed? So not really from the admin console here. You could just remove it from the computer itself. But that issue isn't really going to bother you so much with Printix because it's not some central queue that's going to gum up printing for other users. Right? Even if they're printing to the exact same printer, the printer itself would have to have an issue to stop printing. If somebody were sending a job and they were having issues spooling or something, it's on their computer. It's not in a Printix queue that other users are trying to use. So that problem really doesn't come up very often with Printix. Another one here, does this app work with Konica Minolta's and the badge print process? Yes, we do. Yes, to both of those. Does Printix support all MFPs that Control Suite support today? So we can manage any make and model of printer, any MFP. It's just the control panel application that would be a compatibility question if you wanted to install the control panel application on the printer. And that's compatible with Epson, HP, Konica Minolta, Kyocera, Lexmark, Ricoh, and Xerox. Do you require Printix Go to use the workflow? No, because you could do it from the mobile app. But if you want to do it from the printer itself, yes, we need to install the control panel application or Printix Go on the printer itself. But the mobile app is an alternative to doing that. We have a SAP question here. I'm going to let Tyler answer that one. Asked what integrations are supported for the scan workflow. Currently is OneDrive, SharePoint, and email addresses. More will be added to that shortly. It is our main development goal at the moment. And then lastly here, do you have low toner and other error monitoring and alerts? Yes, absolutely. So that's picked up through our Power BI reporting, and you can create automated alerts to notify you of any of those errors or issues. Okay, quite a few more questions came in here. I'm also going to let Tyler answer the Citrix question, but we support Citrix, absolutely, but he'll answer in detail. Can Printix report out on user copy jobs? So aside from scanning, which we can report on if you have Printix Go, copying, I believe not currently. And then do you support Terminal, Citrix? Yes, absolutely. And again, I'll let Tyler answer that in detail or just send you a link to our documentation, which will make it much more clear than I ever could. But we do support Citrix, absolutely, and terminal environments. Will all device features be available via the Printix solution? For example, stapling, color, black and white? Yes, absolutely. Since we use OEM drivers, not drivers that we've created, but drivers from the manufacturer's websites, we do not miss out on any functionality of the printers at all. Got a question on licensing and how it works. Feel free to reach out to your Kofax rep about that. I believe Kofax is doing it per device, per printer. But reach out to them just to be sure. What if the USB printer is shared? or for that matter, any printer that's set to share. We're not going to mess with any settings, that you've set up on the computer itself. But you won't have to do that anymore. Once you have Printix in place, you won't need to worry about sharing printers out. Because even with USB printers, if you bring them into Printix, you can then share them out to other users as an admin. But yeah, it won't be a problem. Does Printix do firmware updates? We do not. We have looked into that. I suggest putting in a feature request for that, because the more that we get, the more we are likely to add that to our roadmap. So a lot of people are asking about a trial. Everyone's going to get a follow-up email with a link on exactly how to do that. Please go out and start a trial. It's really easy to do. Most of our customers get completely set up and running within just a couple of hours. So thank you for asking about those trials. We will send you a link on how to get a trial after a follow-up email. We have another question about security with Azure Blob Storage. I will let Tyler send you the documentation to our security page, which covers all of that in great detail. Also, can Printix be used in a zero trust environment? Absolutely, and it would be true zero trust. Some of our competitors boast zero trust, but it's not true zero trust. Printix can actually provide or manage printers in a true zero trust environment. And feel free to take a look at our documentation. I'll try and get that included in the follow-up email. If not, Tyler can include it there as well for you. Can Azure hosting be region, country specific? For your own setup for remote printing, yes, of course. For ours, not currently. We are currently in Europe West, but Kofax has an initiative to get us set up in North America shortly. But again, the print jobs themselves by default aren't going there. We're printing direct IP unless you set up remote printing, but then you can set up your own Azure Blob wherever you want for those jobs to be sent through. Can the users change the properties of predefined queues? For example, page size and defaults. Yeah, they can. So we can share out the defaults through different queues through Printix, but because the printers show up as regular printers, they can still go in if they know how to do it and change the settings. Or when they go to print, they can change minor settings like black and white, color, whatever. But we can, default it back to the settings once they've changed it, or make it a nuisance for them to keep changing it, or just create a user queue. If they really need to print a certain way and you're okay with them printing that way, you can just create a queue for them that's set up how they need it, and they'll be able to print as normal. Are the drivers either PCL5 or PCL6? If you have both, do we have a choice? Absolutely, you do. And yes, we support both. And then security question. Again, it's better if I just have Tyler send you the documentation on that. We are ISO 27001 certified as well. All right. I think that's all we will cover today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. If you do have any other questions that pop up, I know there may be a lot. A lot of them will be answered in your trial. And again, we'll send you a link on how to start a trial in the follow-up email, and the documentation. Our documentation is awesome. You can access it in the trial at any time by clicking the little question mark up at the top. And so you can read about everything about Printix. We've covered in our documentation everything that you can do, literally. So feel free to go through that and reach out to your Kofax reps, and they'll be able to help you as well. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today for this awesome Kofax webinar. We look forward to reaching out to you with a follow-up email. Thank you.